Hello and welcome back to the Sekimeiya Spun Glass. Last time around, we finished up chapter 1, learned a little bit more about Atsuki and Shiroya's past, and how exactly it was that Miya died. As a reward for that, we got a new starting screen. So let's get started with chapter 2. I'd never entered Ashia Tower before, but after waiting inside for so long I'd begun to feel familiar with those walls. More and more people had continued entering through the main door, lengthening the queue behind us. I glanced at my right and saw Atsuki's tired face. We'd been in silence for a long time, and I knew there wasn't much I could do to change that. How tired are you? A bit. I'll be fine though. Mingled with the tiredness was misery. Instead of looking back at me, he continued to stare at the rightmost column. Slightly frustrated, I awkwardly averted my eyes too. I'd known him for a very long time, and he looked like a completely different person. It seemed the distance between us would keep extending despite the reason why we'd come to that building. The premise had been to prevent what had happened from disrupting our relationship, but I felt that achieving that was far out of my reach. In addition, I'd had to constantly shape my attitude around it, which I hated. I knew how bad of an idea showing my discontent would have been, so I kept it to myself and continued mirroring his face. Everyone who's waiting in line, please get your tickets out. The receptionist who'd been sharing in the quietness stood up and walked towards us with a barcode scanner. We were at the front of the line, so I handed her our 2 tickets. She hovered the machine over both barcodes until it released a quiet beep for each one. There you go. She gave them back to me with a smile, and I put them in my purse. Oh, I'm glad to see you back. I hope you enjoyed the event. What? For the first time since we'd entered, she'd glanced at Atsuki's face before saying that. What did she mean? I've never been here. I shrugged, since she'd already moved on to the man at her side, but I imagined she'd probably confused him for someone else. There was still more than an hour left until 9, when the front door would open. I'd stopped being curious about what we'd be shown as a result of the overbearing mixture of tiredness and coldness. I'd been paying attention to the brief conversations I could hear to stave off boredom, and they all kept detailing how strange the whole event was. Standing up for so long was building up pain on the lower side of my back, so I had to force the thought of enduring it for over another hour out of my mind. I stretched my limbs and torso, trying to resist the urge to lie on the floor. Just lie on the floor. I would. Shiroya? I'd managed to leave my mind blank, but I abruptly turned around when I heard a quiet voice coming from my left. A man was crouching next to me, and when he stood up I saw his older face underneath white hair. Is this yours? I think you dropped it. He showed me a ticket that must have fallen from my purse when I'd stretched my muscles. I nodded and put it back inside, all while unnerved by his stiff motions. Thank you. After turning around, he spent a few seconds staying still until he walked towards the door on the left. He gripped the knob and opened it before slowly disappearing through it. We weren't supposed to enter yet, so given how nobody had scolded him, he must have been an employee. Atsuki's mood didn't seem to have improved at all, which only caused my own form of anxiety to emerge. I had no way to get rid of it, so all I did was stand up uncomfortably with no perception of what time it was. After a long, lonesome wait, I began to feel more confident and calm. My posture didn't change, but reminding myself that everything would get much better had borne fruits. It must have already been 9, because we were told we could advance through the left door if we weren't part of the event. Nobody did, though. Everyone present was gathered behind us. Sorry for the wait, everyone. We'll now begin the group entrances. A blonde woman wearing a dark suit came out of her door. I recalled having seen her face in the lobby not very long earlier. My name is Naomi. I'll be chaperoning today's guided visit. As you likely already know, groups of 3 will move forward in turns. Each visit is estimated to take approximately 15 minutes. Addressing the multitude all at once, she glossed over the procedure and prohibitions. Once she was done, she looked over her glasses. Are you 3 in the first group? I wasn't sure Atsuki had paid attention to her discourse, and the man at her side was visibly out of it. I I opened my mouth so that we wouldn't waste more time. Yeah, we've been here for a while. Perfect. Please follow me to the event room to be the first to see the Sekimeiya. Quietly, she turned around and walked through the door. All the chatter had faded away, so the three of us walked behind her, the sound of her footsteps filling up the space. On the other side was a long hallway with ornate decorations. There were a few open doors in both walls and a handrail linking all of them together. The woman stepped up to a door in the middle of the left wall and opened it for us. This is where we hold many of our events. Make your way inside. I crossed gazes with the strange man whose look and behavior felt out of place. He entered first and stared at the red curtain that must have been covering the gemstone we'd all come to see. Aside from the display case, the room was empty and only contained a security camera with a flickering green light. More people than I'd imagined were intrigued about the day's events. Personally, I was a little curious, so I'd proposed coming despite what had happened. Atsuki had immediately agreed to prove that he was strong enough to get through. Whether to me or himself, though, I didn't know. He was the last to enter, and Naomi closed the door. Then she asked for introductions before starting to build up anticipation. According to her, we were sharing space with something of incredible value which had been found in the surrounding mountains. Part of the experience is the touch, so we'll open the glass and let you experience it yourselves. However, I must insist that you be gentle and keep your hands inside the cabinet at all times. She took out a keyring from her pocket and isolated one of the smaller keys, which she inserted in a keyhole next to the curtain. I have a question. What is it? You keep mentioning how valuable Sekimeiya is, but is there proof of that? The way you're explaining it, you don't even say what kind of gem it is, only that it's rare. The value could have been arbitrarily created by Ashia, as it's not being officially recognized as anything more than an unusual discovery. Well, I will let you decide that for yourself. As you said, it's not categorized, but because nobody was able to properly appraise it, that's all you need to be assured of its value. I apologize for being skeptical, but you must be aware that Ashia aren't exactly recognized for their fairness. Do you have a reason to say that? Yes, that everyone in the lobby sounded as skeptical as I am. Maybe seeing it for yourself will convince you. That's what I'm hoping. Atsuki and I listened to the conversation until Naomi crouched to grab the bottom of the curtain. The real value of the Sekimeiya wasn't what had piqued my curiosity, as I thought its appearance was what had caused the excitement. But Naomi's motion was cut off. Before she raised the curtain all the way up, my vision was obstructed by dense smoke that forced me to shut my eyes. Instantly, I recognized I was rapidly losing control of my body, and I fell to the floor. Nobody responded to my yell, and Atsuki's desperate gasp was all I heard before silence reigned supreme. Immobile on the floor, reality distanced itself from me. It was all too familiar of an experience, but before I could think about that any longer, I blacked out. Hey. The world vibrated. I saw Atsuki's hair next to my eyes and his arm shaking me while his entire figure was covered by a dark substance. When he saw I'd awakened, he backed off. Do you feel okay? What happened? We're still here? Mixing a nod with a shrug, he glanced at the drastically changed scenery. The smoke had tainted everything it had touched, including ourselves, and the room had become very dark. What the fuck is this? All I could do with my strength was look sideways where I saw Akro trying to sit up. Where did Naomi go? I don't know. She wasn't here when I woke up. I must have left through that door. Akro managed to stand up and looked through it. Even though none of us had touched it, it was slightly open. The left hallway was very dark too, and I could see the smoke had blocked the ceiling lights from illuminating it. Strangely, it didn't seem like anyone else was there. In addition, none of us had discerned the origin of the smoke. As my mind started to get clearer, I began to process what had happened. Did you hear the alarm before we fell unconscious? What alarm? My look told him I hadn't either. Apparently, shortly after I'd been knocked out, a wordless alarm had played. It was fairly obvious there had been a terrorist attack. Fortunately, Atsuki and I were safe, although all of us were clearly unsettled by the solitude. We didn't know how long we'd been asleep or what had happened during that blank period of time. However, something stood out in the room. The three of us were staring at it, and I began to feel able to stand up. Was this done to steal the Sekimeiya? Akaru shrugged, wondering the same thing. While Atsuki was still on the floor, I approached the curtain. I resumed Naomi's action and raised the curtain all the way up. Oh, never mind, it's still here. It is? I turned around and nodded. Akaru approached me and saw with his own eyes the egg-shaped object contained within the glass, on top of a smooth cushion. Is this really it? I figured they were making a big deal out of nothing, but it's even more underwhelming than I thought. It's glowing a little, maybe that's why? I wonder where Naomi is. Seems pretty fishy. What do you mean? Then there's nobody here. I know this seems like an attack, but you know what I said regarding Ashia's reputation, right? I found it hard to believe they'd set up so much advertisement just for this thing. I'm sure they had something in mind to use this event for. Maybe this was it. I don't follow. It happened right before we could see the Sekimeiya and an employee left. Nobody entered yet and we weren't moved. I have an idea of what's going on. I'm sure they wanted to use this opportunity to pull out some countermeasure against Sin, but I don't know what it really entailed. We must have been caught in the middle of it. Akaru filled in Atsuki, who'd never heard of Sin. I still have trouble understanding what you're getting at. What does this situation scream to you? Failed robbery attempt, right? They might have purposely acted out a failed attack since they're desperate to publicly say they won against Sin. I'm immediately noticing a bunch of odd details that point to that. Didn't you say they always attack during the night? Why would they do it during the day? If anything, that points further at Sin not being behind it, and a false flag is the possibility next in line. Let's see how much time has passed and why nobody else is here. If I'm wrong, the police or Ashia should know. I helped Atsuki stay up and we brushed the remnants of smoke off of herself. Both of us were extremely tired. The sudden turn of events felt almost surreal, but he still looked distant, almost divorced from reality. It took a few seconds for us to walk normally, but the left hallway was, as we'd seen through the door, completely desolate. We opened the opposite door and glanced at the right hallway, where we'd come from. It was in the same state as its parallel neighbor, indicating that whatever had happened was large scale. Is that a person? You're right. Hey, what the hell happened? He sped up toward them while I stopped. Are you okay? I'm sorry I made you come here. No, don't worry, none of this is your fault. It wasn't my fault, so I didn't push it. I sighed, a bit irritated, and passed it off as loosening myself up, like I'd been getting used to doing. Next to the lobby door, we introduced ourselves to Erina and Sai, as well as Kate, the person I'd exchanged words with before. Sai, Erina, and her daughter had been the group behind us and had fallen unconscious while waiting in the hallway. Kate told us he worked in the tower as a security manager and that he was trying to piece together what had happened. Naomi was gone? He looked down, worried. I've been suspecting her, but I can't believe I was right. We have to find her. I'm almost certain she was behind the attack. What do you mean we have to find her? How can you even be sure she's still here? Through the poor illumination, I was able to see many expressions lowering at once. Kate revealed what the alarm Atsuki had heard had caused. Although the trigger was unknown, it had sealed every method of escape for 12 hours. Despite Akaru's insistence, Kate kept repeating that he wasn't allowed to reveal anything else, but he claimed he was unsure about other details. I don't get what you're saying. The Sekimeiya wasn't stolen, it's still in that cabinet, so you can't just ignore the activation of the alarm. If that's true, I'm as clueless as you are. What does it look like? It's basically a big egg. You're right, that's the Sekimeiya. In case Naomi didn't warn you... Oh, that's Kate. In case Naomi didn't warn you, well, it's the same voice. The Sekimeiya must never be taken out of its cabinet. The temperature provided to it is essential to maintain it well. Did you keep it shut inside? Yes. I wonder if the alarm put a hold on the plan then, or if Sin intends to take it out once the time expires. See what I told you to? He already believes Sin are behind this. That could very well be Ashia's intention. Isla, whose mother hadn't stopped trying to bring her back to consciousness, opened her eyes and coughed a few times. After a few awkward seconds, Kate told her what had happened. What? Why can't we leave? The exit is blocked off, so are all the windows above. It's to prevent thieves from escaping.
So a thief is here?
Well, we don't think anything was stolen, so it's very possible something went wrong. You're not giving us much to work with. What could have gone wrong? As I said, the system behind the alarm is new and has hardly been tested. Plenty of things could have.
You don't think the timing was way too precise for that? Let's go to the lobby. I'm curious about the blocked door. Interrupting the conversation, Sai stood up and told us to follow him. His intrigue was certainly shared, so we went through the door at our side. Behind it was the untouched lobby. Even though 4 lights had turned off, the middle one shined strongly at our eyes, causing all of us to grimace as we stared at the imposing shutter that had appeared in front of the exit. The only trace of all the people who'd been there was the bucket the janitor had been using. Forget what I said. It was clearly impossible to take that down, completely keeping us shut inside. According to Kate, the remaining door in the lobby area led to a little basement below us that stored the boiler, and there was no feasible way to leave the building before it automatically opened. He also told us that the alarm had disabled the computer on the reception desk. We were rightfully frustrated, as it seemed all of us had gotten innocently trapped, and we weren't even sure why. Thankfully though, everyone was keeping calm. I was very tired, which might have watered down my reaction to everything. It was hard to believe what I was experiencing was real, but I would most likely fall asleep somewhere well before the deadline. The hallway door was slightly open, so someone went through it after the smoke was released, or else this hall would be stained as well. Look, the one to the other hallway is open too. Was it you, Kate?
Yes.
Are all the windows this well blocked too?
They should be.
We have to spend the entire time isolated? Can we not even talk to the outside to understand what happened? This is ridiculous.
Oh, wait. We can't, actually. I thought for a second we might have been able to, but I just realized the alarm's side effects made that impossible.
That's insane. Why would this alarm even be created that way?
I recall telling you I'm not allowed to disclose that.
Is there footage from all the cameras that we could look at?
No, the alarm made that impossible as well.
What?
I apologize, I personally looked at every room on this floor and I'm confident in saying we're the only people here. Right now, our priority must be finding Naomi, who I suspect might have hidden upstairs.
Is there anything of importance you found while you investigated?
Yes, the farthest crystal room in hallway A is the only other one in which the smoke was released. That's how we refer to the exhibition rooms, by the way.
Smoke was released in another room? Why?
Kate shook his head, indicating that he couldn't answer. As we had nowhere else to go, we were compelled to move over to it. A sturdy grey door caught our attention first, and thanks to the map next to it, we learned that the security room was behind it. We could also see the basic layout of the floor we were on, named the Crystal Floor. As it says there, this is the security room, but we won't be able to access it. The door was locked by the alarm and we have no means to open it. Having to accept that, we kept walking toward the room Kate had indicated on the map, labelled A5. The appearance of the narrow room perfectly replicated the hallways. Every curtain was stained black and very little light let us see where we were. However, we were at least able to shine some light on the situation by noticing that the contents of all the cabinets had been removed, which Kate hadn't noticed. At first glance, we could tell it had been a plan not conceived lightly. Despite that, it was Sai who quickly proposed a different idea. The lack of gems in that room could have been a mere diversion, as it was too hard to believe something as important as the Sekimeiya hadn't been the target of a real robbery attempt. In the last and shorter hallway there were bathrooms, which nobody entered.
What's in the staff room? Could we find a phone there?
No, every staff member has a personal locker, but we could only open mine, and I don't keep any devices inside. There's a reason why I believe Naomi might have hidden upstairs, if, as I suspect, she's part of this. Above us there are 5 desolate floors full of offices. However, there's a 7th floor that we call the attic, or the Ashia floor.
Kate explained the story behind its existence, and he left the most important detail for the end.
I don't have the key to access it, only Naomi does. She's the sole trusted individual chosen to preserve its interior as well as possible, and she possesses the only key I know of.
So she's able to hide inside for as long as she pleases.
That's right. If Atsuki's correct and she was still in the event room when the alarm went off, she has to be hiding. Excuse me. She has to be hiding, or else she would have shown herself already. That's a perfect place she has at her disposal. I didn't find anyone else on this floor, so she's most certainly above. I doubt we'll be able to do anything if she's locked in the attic, but we have to do all we can to find her. A door was in the middle of the staircase. Kate was surprised to see it unlocked because it shouldn't have opened in the past few days. When we were about to walk up the stairs, Isla asked whether we could take the elevator instead. Indifferently, Sai tried to open its door, but it didn't budge. Kate told us what we needed to know about it. No key would be needed to access the other floors with it, with the exception being the attic, which required the special key only Naomi had. However, it's not going to work. What? Right now, the elevator won't move if you call for it. The alarm disabled it. I see. Sorry, Isla, but there's nothing we can do about that. Aww. Isla was displeased, but she was doing a fairly good job of not making a scene for a child her age. The wooziness left by unconsciousness had probably played some part in that. When we stepped onto the second floor, we were met with very different scenery. Varying shades of blue and grey were surrounding us, showcasing a much calmer atmosphere. Our goal was to inspect the whole building. Kate had told us nobody had been on the crystal floor, but we knew nothing about the ones above it. However, assuming he was right about the attic, we wouldn't find Naomi anyway. We began with the bathrooms. Then we inspected the offices occupying the main space of the floor. There were 3 partitions separated by translucent walls, full of powered-off computers. Next, the blocked windows made us stop. Just like below, exiting by force was out of the question. Lastly, we saw the corridor leading to the 3rd floor. It looked exactly like the second with swapped staircases. We repeated the same process and concluded there was nothing to be found on it. Kate didn't have the login information for the computer, so a single way to measure the time was Sai's wristwatch. According to it, the time was 9:50. What kind of computers are that don't show the time before you log in? With Kate at the front, we stepped onto the 4th floor. While the bathrooms were being checked, I felt someone's hand on my shoulder. It was Atsuki's. He had been in the back of the group, maintaining his predictable reserved attitude. Look at this, I found it in the staircase. What was surprising was seeing a silver key on the palm of his hand. It looked fairly modern, and not one that would belong to any door nearby. Wait, when I turned around to face the others, he stopped me. I'd like to not tell them. What? At his signal, I walked down the stairs with him. Everyone else was either in the bathrooms or waiting next to them, so they didn't notice us. This doesn't look like an ordinary key, so it should open a special door. Oh, the attics? I don't think so. Doesn't it remind you of the security room door? I guess it does. I could be imagining things, but I think there are a few details Kate mentioned that don't make any sense. Really? And if this really opens the security room, it could confirm that. Wasn't Kate in front of us all this time, checking the floor as if he was looking for something? Is that so? I didn't pay attention. Meaning that he could have been trying to find this key, which he didn't tell us about. If it's related to the security room, it makes sense he would have kept it a secret, since there are some inconsistencies there. While he walked around the floor, he filled me in on what he'd been suspecting. A few assertions Kate had made about the time of the attack contradicted each other. I was taken aback. Not by the idea that Kate might have been lying, but because Atsuki had been thinking about all of it. During the previous days, he'd seemed like a person whose life had been drained out of him. He looked pretty serious, which made me consider that maybe he thought the attack was related to what had happened 2 weeks earlier. Realizing that he'd gone back to being someone I could have a conversation with, I decided to humor him and follow him down. In truth, what he was saying made sense. Kate had said that the alarm had shut the door to the security room. If he tried to hide the existence of its key, that could have indicated that opening it was possible and that he had a reason to prevent it. Given that he worked inside it and that he might have expected the key to be in the floor of the office rooms, maybe he'd been the one to drop it and wasn't completely sure where. One of Atsuki's points was undeniable. Kate had been surprised to hear Naomi had been gone, while he'd later claimed he'd inspected the entire lowest floor. He'd claimed he'd left both doors in the lobby open while he'd searched, but all the crystal rooms he'd supposedly looked into had been closed. Perhaps that had been done to direct us upward, where he'd wanted to retrieve his key. Also, I think he actually saw it, but he didn't say anything. He might have wanted to grab it when we moved on. I see. Hey, where are you two going? On the second floor, we turned around and saw Aaron and Isla. They were alone and must have realized we'd left. I found this key and I'd like to know if it belongs to the security room. What? Without hesitating, Atsuki told Erina what his intent was, at which she looked a little surprised. After hearing that, she took Isla's hand and came with us. Isla didn't object, as it seemed the crystal floor was where she preferred to be. If Kate had a reason to keep us away from the security room, we couldn't know what it was. However, Atsuki seemed suspected he might have lied more than once, so those lies might not have been told for the sake of confidentiality. That was why we'd left without telling him, to see what was inside the room before he could think of a way or excuse to keep us out of it. We were in front of the security room. The metallic door did resemble the key we'd found, and it was hard to believe they weren't a match. Atsuki inserted it in the keyhole and turned it. It enters all the way, but it's not unlocking it. The key was getting stuck in the middle of the turn, but as he'd said, it had to be the correct one. We stood behind him confused. That means the door is open, right? Atsuki looked down and met Isla's face. After considering her conclusion, he turned the doorknob and pushed the door forward. You're right. What the hell? It wasn't even locked. This was the right key, though. From the hallway, we saw many lit screens in front of us illuminating a dim space. It seemed like a bit of smoke had leaked through the gaps in the door. Short point here. I know some people have said before that it's not really ideal to play this game over a long period of time because you'll forget things that might be important to remember later. As a consequence of that, I'm not exactly sure which of these scenes we've seen outplay exactly like that, or if there's like slight changes. I'm not assuming the dialogue's necessarily changed because that would not make sense, I think. But what might be changing is that we might not be hearing all of the dialogue, or might be hearing more dialogue, or just different dialogue in some instances, because it's being perceived by a different person that might be at a different place, you know what I mean. So I don't know if we realized this beforehand, but what this specifically would mean to me is that Kate knew fully well that the door was open. He just didn't want us to enter it. So what he planned to do was to just kind of say, oh, it's closed. We don't even, no need to try opening it. It's closed. And then to find the key and then actually lock it. But we came before him. Slowly we made our way in, wondering whether Kate had purposely lied or simply been incorrect. Kate said the alarm had locked the door. You think that was a lie to stop us from trying to open it? If that's it, he must have something to hide, probably on the computer. On top of the desk were 3 monitors. The one in the middle had its entire screen occupied by a messy program related to the security cameras, while both side monitors were only displaying the desktop. We got closer to them. There was a single chair in front of the middle screen that Atsuki gripped the back of. He was going to sit on it, but he stopped short. We thought the lights had gone off until we saw only the screens had, which darkened the room considerably. The ones above, though, displaying the real-time footage of the security cameras, were still working. Did the computer shut down? The fans are still going. It probably entered sleep mode because it's been a while since anyone used it. He grabbed the mouse, and as soon as he moved it, the 3 screens powered back on, showing the same images as before. Should I try to look at anything? We might get in trouble. If Kate's plan was to keep us out of this room, he won't be able to do so anymore. Maybe he wanted to find a key and lock the door before we realized it was open. Backing up what he said about the alarm locking it. I could see that a few programs were working in the background thanks to the taskbar. Perhaps something we couldn't see was hidden in one of them. Hey, isn't that weird? What is? Behind the chair, Erina was looking up at the live screens. They were showing different parts of the floor we were on, although a few of them displayed only a static black image. According to Kate, that was due to the smoke covering them. But after looking at them for a few seconds, we noticed a large inconsistency Erina had seen. Before we get to the inconsistency, it is kind of strange to me how they would be entirely black even if the smoke was covering them, because you'd think like there'd be slight differences. Because if you think about, I mean, I don't know if you've experienced that before, but from my personal experience, if I'm recording with a face cam, for example, and you have this little thing that can kind of block it, you know what I mean, right? The thing you put on top of it, so it in case of a hacker hacks into it, he can't record you or whatever you use it for, really. But even if you have that on it and you look at the recording, you can still see kind of like a grainy image where it's like, sure, it's black, but you can clearly see that it's still recording something. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, you should be clearly able to tell whether it's not actually recording or whether it's covered by smoke and therefore kind of just like a lot of black. Yeah, that one, it's showing hallway B. Wait, you're right. How is that possible? Hallway B could be seen through one of the monitors. Although a bit of smoke obstructed the view, it wasn't enough to block it completely. The angle was from a corner above the door to the lobby. That's basically where we fell unconscious. It's impossible the smoke didn't hit it as much as the other cameras. The difference is huge. Something must be wrong about this then. This has to be the live footage since the ceiling and walls are covered by smoke. It followed that the difference had to be the camera itself. We turned around and stepped back into hallway A. The silence told us that nobody was close to us, but it was unlikely that would continue for very long. Erna closed the security room behind her, causing a loud noise. The covered cabinet still sat awkwardly in the event room, which we passed through to enter hallway B. It's that one! In the left corner above the lobby door was a security camera with a flickering green light. All of us frowned. After all, it looked identical to the other ones, but with one very important distinction. There's almost no smoke on its lens. How's that even possible? The camera itself is much more stained, so there's no way the lens wasn't hit directly by the smoke. So someone cleaned it, eh? Was it cleaned then? I doubt anyone paid attention to this camera when we were here before, so we can't know how long it's been like this. If someone wiped off some of the smoke, it could only have been Kate or Naomi. Since I'm pretty sure Naomi was really knocked unconscious, only Kate is left. Maybe Sai could have, if he faked waking up after me. I don't know how though. Why are you sure there's no one else here? A hidden person could have done it too, yeah. We haven't seen anyone else, Islam. Something must have been used to reach it, and I think removing all the smoke stuck there would take some time. Maybe that's what Kate was hiding from us. Normally it's not likely we would have realized this lens was clean. It's black too, and there's very little light here. Yeah, and entering the security room made us notice it immediately. That might make more sense than him only wanting us to not use the computer. He could have just ordered us to not touch it. Do you seriously think he's behind us? I don't know. I just thought a few of his claims didn't make sense. Being a member of the security staff would let him pull some things off though, so maybe. Surely you two are aware of Sin, right? Yeah, Akira talked about them briefly. I'm sure everyone who knows about them has assumed they're involved in this. I wouldn't rule out this whole thing being a complicated plan, so keeping this camera working might be what they want. We walked to hallway C with a few things to question the others about. It didn't seem like they were trying to find us, as we would have immediately heard them calling. When we arrived at the 4th floor, we still hadn't found anyone. They might have continued looking through the other ones without us. I guess so. The bathrooms where we'd last seen them were open and empty. We circled through the floor and arrived on the 5th one for the first time. It didn't look different from the others and we couldn't see anyone. We repeated the same routes as we had on the lower floors, reaching the last one we had access to. The attic's door should be here, so maybe they found a way to get in. We went to the opposite corridor where we found the entrance to the next floor. Although it looked like a dead end at first, a grey door came into view when we got closer. Yeah, this must lead to the attic. Upon turning the knob, Erna realized the door was locked like we'd been told. It can't be that they're inside. Maybe they followed us down and we missed each other. A little lost, we walked back and stood in front of the offices. We hadn't checked the last few since it had seemed unlikely the others would have still been looking through them. Natsuki and I checked the 3rd partition and didn't find anyone. Then we opened the 2 bathrooms which were also vacant. The same was repeated on the 5th floor with identical results. When we were walking down to the fourth, we stumbled upon someone going up.
Oh, here you are. I couldn't find you.
Are you alone?
I am. Where did you go? I was using the bathroom below and saw that nobody was still outside when I left.
Huh? We found the key to the security room, so we went to the crystal floor. Kata inside didn't come with us, though.
I'm confused. Why did you not wait for us? Did you open the security room then?
Yes, and that's why we'd like to find Kate.
I see. I looked through the remaining floors since I imagined you all must have kept going up, but they were empty. I got to the Ashia floor's door, which I couldn't open. Then I walked back down to the crystal floor, but I haven't found anyone until now.
It appeared we'd actually missed each other. Since we just looked through the floors above us, we kept going down. Oh, here you are. Where the hell did you go? And where's Kate? As soon as we stepped onto the third floor, we reunited with Sai, who rapidly approached us. You're alone too? We found the key to the security room and went to the crystal floor. Where did you find it? Atsuki saw it in the staircase. Huh, I see. And you went to check if it worked? We nodded, waiting his explanation. I suddenly saw you were all gone and didn't know if you walked down or toward the partitions, but I figured I hadn't noticed you'd gone down the stairs. I didn't find anyone when I went all the way down. I was gonna search for the first floor until I heard a sound coming from the stairs that I followed up here. So we missed you on the crystal floor. He shrugged. I get what you're saying though. You were able to open the security room. Before we could explain the more important details, another person appeared from the corridor of the partitions.
Oh, here you are. I knew I'd probably missed you up here.
Where were you?
I got out of the bathroom and saw that nobody was waiting outside, so I should be asking that. I didn't see anyone on the upper floor, so I went back down. I thought that maybe all of you went down to the crystal floor for some reason. It didn't seem like anyone was there though, so I figured you'd all been inside the offices somewhere and that I hadn't seen you.
We probably missed each other when I was looking alone through the higher floors.
Well, why did you all leave? Of course nobody has seen Naomi, right?
I'm curious about something. Why is it exactly that we can't enter the security room?
The security room? Didn't I mention it? The alarm locked it.
And there's no way to undo that lock?
No.
That's surprising, seeing as they found the key and unlocked it.
What?
Atsuki took the silver key out of his pocket and showed it to him.
What the hell? Of course I knew this key could unlock it, but where did you find it?
In the staircase.
That's very strange. There aren't many keys like this one, and I left mine inside the security room without thinking about it. That's why I thought we'd have no way to enter again.
But you said that you left after the alarm played, right? You would have had to unlock the door to get out if the alarm locked it.
No key is needed to unlock it from the inside, and after closing the door from the outside, it automatically locked itself again, since I didn't disable many of the alarm's functions.
I'm confused. Even though we found the key, we didn't use it to unlock the door. It was already unlocked.
Excuse me? That's not how it was programmed to work. Regardless, is that why you suddenly left? To see if you could open the security room?
Yes.
None of you are permitted to enter without my consent. Why was I not informed about the key?
I'm sure it was because of the things that you've said. I would have done the same thing. It appears the door being locked is just another dubious claim of yours.
What? What is dubious about what I've said? And that must have been a malfunction in the alarm. I had no way to confirm the lock had been set when I left, since the inner knob undoes it by itself, and I didn't check whether the door had locked automatically after I left. It should have, but it appears it didn't.
I suppose that's not too ridiculous.
Wait a second, we can enter the security room. Why the hell are we talking about this? Now we have a way to communicate with the outside. I said the alarm had shut it down because I thought it had locked the way in. We'll be able to look at the recorded footage as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Let's go then. Although it wouldn't exactly have been the alarm to have cut off our access to it, it would have been your ineptitude for not bringing your key out with you.
I can't deny that, it was my mistake.
And yet an identical key was found up here. We'll see if you can find yours inside the room. Kate nodded slowly and began to walk back. When the conversation ceased and the rest of us followed in silence, I glanced over at Atsuki. His brief bout of investigation had been just that, brief. Emptiness was the only thing written on his face whenever he wasn't pursuing some thought.
Nobody next to him had a clue how he was feeling, and he decided to at least pass himself off as stable. His initiative from before had been a tad surprising, but it was clear that his mind was someplace else entirely. With how strong those emotions were supposed to be, adopting a made-up expression of sorrow was pathetically easy. Out of recent habit, the sight of his face made my own a mirror, and I let my shoulders drop. We were walking down the stairs that led to the second floor when Sai's voice brought us to a halt. "Kate, how many keys do you have?" He turned around, staring at Sai uncertainly. "What?" "That's not too hard of a question, is it?" We understood the reason behind it. As soon as Kate had begun to walk down the stairs, conspicuous metallic noises had come from him. "Earlier you did have a few keys, but the sound you were making just now was significantly different, like they doubled in number even." "You're out of your mind." "Perhaps, which is why I'm asking." "What exactly is the issue? I'm trusted with many keys so that my job can go smoothly." "Like I said, the issue is that it sounded like you have more now. Did you recently come across a few?" "No." "I'm intrigued then. Care to show them? Maybe I'm going insane." "I'd rather not. These aren't keys visitors are supposed to have." "Did you miss the word show? I'm not going to take any." Seeing that he was against the request, Sai took 2 steps forward. Although it was Kate who looked down on him, with a quick motion, Sai stuck his hand into and removed it from Kate's deep pocket, where the metallic sound had come from. "Hey!" With one finger, Sai was holding a keyring with 4 keys on it. "I suppose these would make the noise. Why did you not want to show them to us?" "Because I didn't feel like humoring your condescending attitude. Are you satisfied now?" "Hardly. What do they open? And what's this thing? Tape?" Stuck on the keyring was a dark, tiny piece of material. When he separated it from the keys, we identified it as duct tape, and that it had been hit by the smoke. "Wait, isn't that one?" I grabbed the keys and looked at them on my palm. "Yes, the Sekimeiya cabinets. This is the keyring Naomi had." "Oh, wouldn't that explain it?" "Naomi's keyring? That's a big leap you're making. This is my own with the same keys Naomi has." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm aware of the keys I'm given. This was the original set, in fact. Naomi was given a replica of it since her job was recently expanded." "So all these keys belong to you and you didn't find it just now?" "Yes." "You do understand there's a simple way to prove whether you're lying, right?" "What are you talking about?" "I see, you don't get it. You're claiming these are yours, am I right? You didn't just come across Naomi whatsoever." "You're being very irritating. How do you intend to prove whatever accusation you're making?" "It's not a definite way, but earlier you said that Naomi has the attic key and that you don't." "Yes." "So if one of those keys opens the attic, we can confirm you're lying, which I was already fairly certain of. How does that sound?" I think this one might fit in the keyhole we saw. "This one? It's definitely the odd one out. I'm glad Naomi didn't keep it separately." Sai turned around and began to go up the stairs. Even though going to the security room was a priority, nobody stopped him. If he was right and Kate had recently obtained that keyring, he must have known Naomi's whereabouts and had been given those keys after setting up the illusion that the attic would only be accessible for her. "What are you even trying to prove? There are quite a few things I'm simply not allowed to speak about." As we were reaching the 6th floor, Kate's mumble stopped Sai. "Are you implying that you didn't tell us you had the key for the attic so that we wouldn't try to access it?" "I'm implying that you're vastly overstepping." "That might sound imposing if you hadn't lied so much already." "You are merely assuming that." "Of course I can't prove that the security room didn't stay open because of an error, so yeah, I will assume that was something you said to temporarily cover your ass." "You will end up regretting all this." Sai ignored him and looked at his side where the elevator was. He approached it and pressed the circular button which Kate had promised would do nothing earlier. "I might as well check if the elevator is still working due to another error, since it seems your claims can be ignored." "The elevator was disabled. That's much more unlikely to have gone wrong. If it had been working for some reason, the button would have lit up when it arrived. Do you remember the lights in the lobby?
That was also caused by the alarm, so it appears the security room was the single exception.
Sai accepted that Kate was probably right in that instance and kept walking. After making it around the floor, we stood in front of the sturdy-looking door. I picked the key that seemed to fit and inserted it into the keyhole. After a turn, the door was unlocked. Sai wasted no time in opening it and looked within.
I will give you all a warning. Do not enter this place. This is a very special floor that must not ever be accessed by visitors.
Let me tell you what's actually happening now. Given how likely it is that Naomi is in this place and you were planning to enter it freely, we're going to ignore your warning. Once again, even though Kate looked around at everyone, nobody stepped forward to side with him. Naomi must be in this building, and if she hasn't shown herself yet, she must want to keep on hiding. You said you wanted to find her too, right? Regardless of whether the two of you are working together, she's probably here. We just confirmed the elevator's not working, so she's cornered.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. Go ahead and screw yourselves over, but don't be surprised by the consequences.
Without a second thought, Sai went past the door and began to climb up the dark staircase.